The Brigade's Boys and Girls Club is enhancing lives and shaping children's futures. My name is Marcel Branch. I grew up in San Diego, California, in a part of the community known as Southeast San Diego. In San Diego, the Southeast community, we had two boys clubs. They're on opposite sides of town. The Oaks Boys Club was a classroom of sorts for me. It taught me the importance of character, taught me the importance of community. The teachers, if you will, were incredibly devoted staff. They inspired and enabled me and countless others to reach into our full potential. At the Oaks Boys and Girls Club, I learned courage. And I learned that courage during swimming lessons. I faced my fears, I acted courageously, and I got into the pool and I learned how to swim. But at the same time, during the same exact lessons, I also learned empathy, humility, and compassion. See, because some of my friends couldn't act as courageously. They couldn't get in the pool. So I also learned some selflessness because I was so excited about my accomplishments, what I had done. But when I looked into the face of my friends who could not do the same, I learned to contain that excitement. I learned patience and adaptability and compromise because I had friends that went to the Oaks Boys Club who had physical disabilities and they were unable to participate in particular activities. So I had to compromise. And I got involved into some activities that I otherwise would not have known about if I hadn't settled down and looked for different ways to have some fun. Men, I will never, ever forget Coach Joe and Mr. Brody helped me shape my young life. They also understood the challenges that I would face in middle school. And the gang culture swallows kids whole in middle school. Now, I was fully informed by Mr. Joe and Mr. Brody about the pitfalls of the gang life. But the lure of the power, prestige prevailed, and I too was swallowed up by the gang culture. Now, I talked about the clubs being on different sides of town earlier. Well, each of the clubs was nested in a rival gang territory. And so my grandparents lived near the Oaks Boys Club, and the gang that I had become affiliated with was mortal enemies and rival gangs. I had no way of knowing that the friends that I made at the Oaks Boys Club would become bitter rival gang members. On many occasions, the level of violence that would take place between rival gang members, it was averted. And it was averted because the ties that bound us together were stronger than those that would tear us apart. That was a miracle that I experienced after leaving. Those days, the Oaks Boys Club saved my life. It saved my life in that I wasn't a homicide statistic. I didn't die at an early age at the hands of another black man over a senseless crime. It saved my life in that I didn't end up in prison for committing some crime that will have me incarcerated for the rest of my life. And like many gang members, I'm going to consider myself one of the fortunate ones because I was incarcerated at a young age. I went through the incarceration, and during that time, I developed a passion for reading. And I rediscovered many of the lessons that were taught to me at the Oaks Boys and Girls Club. I was determined to make amends for all of the wrongdoings and transgressions I had committed against my community. And I made a commitment to serve my community. I talked about courage, and I talked about adaptability that I had learned at the Boys and Girls Club. And I acted courageously upon my release, and I enrolled in college. I was able to finish my bachelor's degree. I went in to focus my career on working with children with emotional disturbances and learning disabilities as my focus. And from there, I elevated my education and continued to learn, and I got a master's in education. And then I went on from there, and I got a master's in business because I always had an interest in starting a school, but I understood that school was going to be much more complex than the building itself, that I would have to understand some of the principles of business. Decades after I had attended the club, it was still influencing my life. And today, not only am I a senior manager of learning and development for a big corporation, but I also do some consulting with school districts. And I'm working with professionals and teaching practical applications for how to build resiliency in children while we accelerate academic achievement. See, the Boys and Girls Club, it shaped my life, it saved my life, and it continues to influence my life. See, I'm here today, over 40 years removed from being at the club, and I'm still serving the Boys and Girls Clubs.